Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast, all about Star Trek Online. My name is Chris.
And I'm Jeremy.
Jeremy, welcome to episode 16.
Thank you.
No Brian this week. He is in the process of relocating. He got a new gig, and he'll be moving, so he's going through that. You got the holidays on top of packing, which sounds like total complete...
And a big empty his bar party coming up.
Yeah, a total complete craziness, so... He is sort of inundated with that process right now.
Yeah.
We have got such a crazy amount of stuff to talk to you guys about today. First of all, since our last episode, there's kind of been an explosion in the Star Trek Online community.
And I helped.
You did a good job there, Jeremy. Kind of been an explosion regarding Klingons, and we'll cover that and what everybody's kind of worked up about, and where it's kind of leading things to go. We got some great articles from the news regarding Star Trek Online, interviews with Cryptic staff, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Like
and
always.
A couple of videos we want to talk about. Cryptic's doing something new, sort of like an episodic type video. We'll discuss that.
Yep.
And then at the end, we have got tons of Klingon screenshots. Just a whole mess of them.
Yeah.
And some other ones too. So we'll cover those towards the end of the episode. But let's jump
will.
right into... Last episode, Stoked 15, if you haven't seen it, we interviewed Daniel Stahl from Cryptic. He's the
great guy,
producer for Star Trek Online, and we got onto the conversation of Klingons. Jeremy asked a few questions regarding Klingon gameplay.
I sure did.
And Daniel's response was, things are still evolving, moving forward, but as of right now at launch, the plan is that Klingons are going to be PvP.
Yeah.
Which means you fight, you don't go fight like other ships controlled by a computer and players controlled by a computer. You fight other players.
Right.
They're actually playing another character.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little more like a first-person shooter style. And his explanation for that was, we just don't really see it making logical sense that you tell the Klingons to go scan the system and rescue these hostages. That just doesn't sound like Klingon style. Klingons are going to move up through the ranks.
Klingons do not take hostages.
Right. They're going to move up through the ranks by combat and by, proving their honor and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, Jeremy... Tell me if I get this right, but people really reacted badly. Some people like myself, were like, "That sounds perfect. That sounds exactly like it should be."
To be honest, I've been trying to weed out the actual good points that people have made about this on the forums, because most of it, I'll be quite honest, is just a bunch of jumping to conclusions and whining about stuff that isn't there.
We could do a show segment about how the community. There's a certain subset of the community that reacts badly to the news, regardless of what the news is.
Regardless.
It's like if it came out and it said, Cryptic's going to be selling a special pre-order bonus, it's going to be $40 cheaper, comes with a pony and a Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
There would be someone really pissed off about
But I hate Corvettes!
I don't like ponies!
I'm allergic to ponies!
Yeah. So...
You're absolutely right. There's
I think
always
there's
somebody.
You got, and so that was no task. There was no small task to weed through all of the complainers that are just complaining.
But there were some good points made.
Partially made. Out at you. Is there any particular that?
Well, one of the major complaints from the people that are actually looking at this logically is that they're complaining about the fact that if you're making a faction that's entirely based on PvP, you have to make the PvP actually mean something to the game world. So things like being able to control star systems and star bases and things like that, they see this because Star Trek Online, as we all know, is going to be totally instant. It's just one giant server. So you can't do territory control when you're all on the same server. They're also concerned with the fact that population imbalances will cause instances to have a longer queue for one side or the other.
What you mean by population imbalances is that if there's 300 Federation players that want to do PvP and there's only 15 people playing Klingons, people have to queue up.
And those Klingons, remember, also will have the choice to play against other Klingons instead of against Federation.
Yeah, but if you go through the forum, it sounds like most people are going to want to fight the Federation because the Federation is the enemy.
Yes.
So it doesn't really sound like you're not going to have... I don't think there's really going to be a problem of Klingons only wanting to fight other Klingons. There's going to be some of that, and I'll probably do a little bit of it just to try it out, but I don't think that particular is much of an issue. I also don't really think the population thing is an issue, and the reason is when I found out that Klingons are PvP and there's not some of the same stuff, to me that was like no big deal because I've always intended to have the Federation side of the game be my primary game.
Did it actually work as additional enticement to get you over there?
No, never.
Oh, no?
No, Klingon gameplay was never, ever a reason for me to play Star Trek.
No, but I mean, when you heard about the fact that they were going to be primarily PvP, did that make you go, oh,
yeah,
maybe I need to try that out?
To me, what it means, to me, I want to just focus on a character, get the best stuff for my ship, get the best bridge crew, get myself to a point, and that takes a massive amount of dedication.
Sure.
So to me, the whole idea that I have this other character on top of other Federation characters that I might have that I need to sort of groom and bring up was just a lot of work. Not that I wouldn't mind doing it and spending the time, because I plan for this to be a long-term game for me.
Right.
But the flip side of that is like it's almost like this distraction that I don't need. But now that I know, I can just, if I just get a little burnt out in Federation gameplay for a while, I'll just jump over to a Klingons and do a little PvP for a bit. Not that I can't PvP with the Fed, but you know.
No, but since it's going to be your primary source of advancement over there, why not do it on that character?
And I also like the idea of jumping in my Bird of Prey and going after Federation for a little while, and then jumping back and doing my mainline gameplay again.
Yeah.
Now, so with the argument that there's going to be a population imbalance, see, I think that sort of nullifies itself in my type of scenario, because there's always going to be someone, while I might be in my Federation stretch for a while where I'm playing mostly Federation, someone else, maybe like yourself, maybe you're done playing Federation for a while and you're going to jump and do the PvP on Klingon side for a little while. And so there's going to be a balancing out, because it's just, I think people will naturally just flip between the two as they kind of get tired.
Yeah, well, plus you're dealing with a game that's got one single server. So, you know, even if they don't do all that well and only get 100,000 subscriptions down the line, that means your entire potential enemy or combatant base is 100,000 people. That's not small.
Well, when we say, now we should be careful. When we say one single server, we don't mean that like Cryptic has like one single server in a closet. That's
no, it's not
all
like one piece of
Online.
hardware. No.
It means that everybody, like in World of Warcraft, to play with your buddies, you all had to be on it. You had to pick the server, or they just named them what they had names for them.
Yeah.
But essentially, you were picking a server to run on. Whereas what Cryptic done is they've sort of extracted that and sort of they distributed across a cluster of servers, but to the player, it all looks like one single place.
Right. You're allowed to switch your character between.
And then they have instances where you can have 30 people in this instance and 40 people in this instance and 50 people in that instance. Right. You can still all find each other. It's actually a nice way to go. It works well in Champions.
Yeah, and it will work well down the line with if you actually meet real life people that you'd like to play with. You don't have to worry about
it scales better
what
too.
server do you? Yeah,
it scales better.
Well, and that's what I'm getting at is that population imbalances will probably not exist because if you're talking again about 100,000, let's just throw that number out there. If you're talking about 100,000 people wanting to PvP, it's only going to any potential. Oh, you're going to get mathed again.
Oh crap! I need a mass disclosure thing. Something that flashes like really
it's
bright.
only going to affect 1% of those people, that imbalance, who are at the end. The rest of everybody is going to have plenty of combatants to go up against or to fight with. So it's just not going to matter.
I also think there's some logic at the stage. They say about 5 hours of gameplay, then you unlock Klingons. 5 hours might be pushing it a bit once you get experience with the game. It might be more like 2.5 hours of gameplay, maybe 3.
Maybe if you watch our tutorial videos, we can walk you through it in about 2 hours.
Yeah, and I think you'll be able to get to the Klingons a lot faster, but because it's at this point in the game, for me, it's the perfect spot where I'm ready to kind of take a break from the feds and play a little Klingon for a bit.
Right.
It's almost like a natural, man, I've been doing this for a while. I'll just take a break and take a switch.
It's time to let your captain go to 10 forward and hang out for a while you switch over and
and the flip side
get your pwn on.
The flip side is you also are unlocking more abilities in the Federation side, so you might just be more encouraged to keep playing the Federation side. So people, the main controversy, in my opinion, stems from is there's some people that were going to play Star Trek Online because Klingon. Right. You already have Klingon fleets that have been established. They were planning to do the entire player versus environment where you would beam down to a planet and there would be non-player characters down there doing, episode type missions that you have to talk to and fight. And they were planning to, essentially only play the Klingon side. And
right.
From what I'm gathering. And I think, with an MMO and expansions, it's kind of a standard thing. Those kinds of features can always be added. They were already talking about adding it at this point. And there's been massive gameplay changes to other MMOs post-release through these expansions and updates. So that might be something that happens, but I think initially looking at the launch, to me, you've got to go after the you've got to really dial in the Federation gameplay from PvE to PvP. You got to have the Federation side completely in, because I think the vast majority is going to be playing Federation. You have a lot of upset people in the minority of the Klingon gameplay who are upset now, but I think...
But, to be honest, the fact that the Klingons were going to be a primarily PvP faction has been out for months now. I mean, we've known about this since an Ask Cryptic that came back, I'm going to probably guess October.
I know, but, it's just a little different with things getting closer, and it was the interview with Daniel was, something people could watch and hear, and I think it's just a little different when you hear it come directly from them instead of something you might skip over in an Ask Cryptic.
Maybe.
Post. The other thing I thought would be of interest to talk about is I don't really have any specifics for people out there, but the feedback I'm hearing from people that are in closed beta now that have gotten to the stage where they've unlocked Klingon gameplay is, yeah, it's PvP, but it's fantastically well done.
Yeah.
They're enjoying the heck out of it. And
part of that comes from that there's so much variety. Now, why don't you go ahead and pull up this...
That's what I was thinking. So we've kind of got a variety of different types of Klingon PvP scenarios.
Yeah.
And
instances that you probably join a queue. I think that's been mentioned before. You go into a queue and then you enter these...
And the queue system is neat because you can keep playing the game and you just put your hat in the queue and you put your name in the queue and say, hey, at some point I'd like to play. And then it's it's like you're waiting on hold, but you can keep going about your missions and it'll pop up you an alert and say, hey, are you ready to play?
Right.
You accept it. It takes you out of the episode you're in, which you can resume later.
And this is probably
PvP.
just like Champions Online. There's an option. The two options that pop up in Champions Online are think like hide or cancel.
Yeah. Champions Online.
If you click hide, then it'll give you another pop up later. You don't exit the queue, but if you're busy doing something,
you're in the middle of just about to complete your episode.
Right.
You can just defer that one, and then you just go next, and you get farther down the list.
Right. So I'm going to guess that since STO's using the same engine, and we already know it's using a lot of the same terminology for their PvP queue system, it's probably going to have the same sort of a pop up, which is very
I would say very probably. All right, so here's a couple of different type of PvP scenarios. You have challenges which allow two teams to square off in a private instance. So you got one group of people over here, and you could even have people in your own fleet to have their own teams, and then you could have people inside the fleet versus each other. So you can organize and team up, and then you go into your own private instance.
That's something that we haven't seen in previous games, unless there's one that I'm not really aware of. But the fact that you can actually spawn these own, at least this implies that you can spawn your own private.
That's what it says.
PvP matches.
Yeah, it's a private instance on the fly. You can generate it and go in there, and it's just the people you invited. It's like it's a lot like Call of Duty or Quake 3 or
and it brings the MMO back to the LAN party level in a way, which a lot of us really like.
It does,
for PvP.
because you can be all at the same place and do this, or you could be over the internet and have Ventrilo going or something like that.
Or you could go to one of those LAN party stores and say, hey, we're going to meet up and do a big Star Trek Online player versus player match and do your own little tournaments that way and everything.
It would be actually a lot of fun.
So much fun.
Okay, so then there's Arena, which that sounds like Quake 3 Arena.
Yeah.
Arena maps are team versus team matchups in instances played either by teams that challenge another team or by randomly assigned teams created via a global queue system. So you can be a team, and as a team, you can put your name out there in that queue and say, our team wants to take on another team.
Yeah.
You go off and play. Go beat up on some people, and then it'll just say, hey, another team's ready to fight you, and then it'll bring you into the instance, and you can fight.
That sounds so much fun.
That's like a lot of fun to me, too. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
And there's like 3 other options in here, but I don't think we need to list them all by name.
To them. Scenarios and Warzone. I'll just mention Warzone really quick. Maps are static maps that are always open for players to join, so you just enter the area.
Oh, neat.
Both factions may...
So there is some open world PvP in a way.
Yes, there is.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's an open...
That's actually been one of the other primary complaints from people that are in the pro PvP camp, but not in Star Trek Online.
Well, and here's a really neat... This Warzone type has open mission style PvE objections. So you'll enter this open area.
Great.
And it'll be like, here's an open instance. People are just fighting. They're doing player versus player. While you're here, try to make it to this object. Try to rescue the ship. Try to make it to the starbase.
Well, that's fun.
So it's player versus player with an objective.
I like objective-based PvP. I think that'll be fun.
And then you can also be teamed up in that instance, so you can get group progression, and all of this stuff helps level up your Klingon character.
Right. We're told that you will be gaining skill points and credits and loot. Anything that you would need to advance your character, you can get through these objective-based PvPs.
Now, I guess you could. I mean, so you still level up the guy. You still add stuff. Now, there's one of the things that you mentioned in the interview, and it's been mentioned again and again on the Star Trek Online forums. Is this is essentially fancy monster play, And what does that mean? What does monster play mean?
Well, the only other title currently available on the internet is Lord of the Rings Online that has something called Monster Play, and it's basically you get to level 10 in Lord of the Rings and you roll up a monster. Now, this monster only has, I think it's 5 ranks, and at each rank you can pick like 1 new power. So even at your max monster rank, you're still just like 3 buttons, and you're a monster. You don't get to customize your appearance.
Well, see,
you're either like a spider or an orc.
Now, with the Klingons, you still get the full character creation.
Right.
You still get fleets, and you can still do equipment upgrades, ability upgrades. You can improve. Now, is that not true in the Lord of the Rings?
No. And I think
this is really a much more advanced version than Monster Play. I really, from everything we've seen of it, I wouldn't call it Monster Play. I know a lot of people make the comparison. Well, you kind of did in the last episode.
I asked him if he was afraid that it would be compared to it, and he didn't allay my fears so much in the interview, but I've been doing a lot more research trying to dig through all the forums about the whole explosion that happened from our interview. So, and now I understand it.
I really am impressed with the Klingon ships.
Yeah?
I'm reading, well, so they say, it's a lot like the Federation. You unlock different ships as your character progresses. So, the warrior is like the start out, like ensign.
Yeah, like an ensign.
You get a bird of prey out of the gate that can cloak in combat. And these bird of preys, we've got some screenshots coming up. They look awesome.
And there was, well, we'll get to that later. Never mind.
Well, no, go ahead.
Stay tuned.
So we don't forget. Did you want to say something?
Well, there was some footage put up on YouTube of a guy actually flying a bird of prey.
Okay, if I can dig that up, I'll put it behind us right now.
Yeah.
So
they look very maneuverable.
It did, and you know what? The footage will probably be down by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah. To be honest, it'll probably get nabbed.
But the Klingon ship definitely has some advantages. It looked like from the other stuff we've seen with the Federation ship.
Now they've been saying that that's balanced by maybe being a bit of a glass cannon, but that's how Klingons are. They come in, they swoop in out of cloak, and they just blast you out before you can react. Yeah. So
one of the things Cryptic put out, one of the things Cryptic put out in their Klingon discussion was that I think it was the Ask Cryptic about Klingon gameplay is that the Klingons have a lot of power forward facing.
Yeah, it's at the end of this article as well.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they have more forward firing arcs.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from Cryptic. In general, Klingon ships have more forward facing weaponry than the Federation counterparts, and boast greater maneuverability.
Yeah.
What's more, bridge officer stations aren't restricted by class, meaning captains will be able to put any bridge officer they like into any station.
Yeah.
Regardless of their profession. Ooh. So you don't... Oh, okay.
Right. So we've been told, like on the Federation side, we know that...
Science officers have to go in the science
station. Right. And each different type of ship will have a different number of different stations, so you have to have those bridge officers. Yeah. But on the Klingon side, you could have 12 tactical officers.
Yeah.
And just
it'd just be like one could be like awesome at like tractor beams. One could be awesome at I know it's one of those things you're supposed to get is like the ability to shoot quad torpedoes.
Yeah,
I think we've talked about.
We've seen those in the videos.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah. But as a Federation, I would think that would mean if you get behind a bird of prey, that's where your strength is going to be.
Probably just based on this. Yeah. Since most of their weaponry will probably be forward facing.
Klingon Lieutenant unlocks a nicer bird of prey. And then Lieutenant Commander, you get a Raptor, and then
this is something if you're going to mention the ships, and I want to mention this as well. Each rank from Warrior all the way up to General has Bird of Prey, and each time they just become a Bird of Prey Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4.
But you also get wrapped, like some of them, like Captain has Bird of Prey Mark 4.
Yeah, there's other options.
You have Raptor Mark 3, and you have a Battle Cruiser.
Yeah. But if you're totally in love with the highly maneuverable little fighter, the Bird of Prey,
it just gets nicer.
Yeah.
Which is the Klingons to a T. I mean, if you look at there's Klingons in the most recent Star Trek movies with the same ships that they had in Star Trek the Motion Picture. Like the Klingons, once they get something working, they like
it. The Katinga battlecruiser from the original series?
Yeah.
It's still around.
A little more modern looking, but yeah.
Or didn't they have a Bird of Prey in Enterprise?
Oh yeah,
in
absolutely.
The series.
Oh yeah.
So those have been around
a little older. I mean, it was essentially the same ship, which is awesome. All right, so there's more information in this article that we'll link to in the show notes over at JupiterBroadcasting.com.
If you're a fan or even have a passing interest in Klingons, you owe it to yourself to read that. Yeah. It's worth it.
Now, is there anything more you want to talk about the whole Klingon brouhaha? I personally, I think people are overreacting a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to say that don't jump to conclusions. I think that until you've actually had a chance to either see gameplay and try to
and
find
I started to say that people that are giving us feedback that are in beta are saying it's PvP, but the Klingon gameplay is just so much fun. They're saying it's a different game.
Yeah, well, yeah, I believe it. PvP is a different game.
Well, that's a hard thing to pull off. That's a hard thing to pull off inside one game.
Well, one of the biggest arguments as a proponent to PvP gameplay is that it never grows old because you're always going against people that are going to know different things. It's like even no matter how well you program your artificial intelligence of your NPC characters, they will never stack up to playing against another player. And that might mean that the other player is terrible sometimes. But a lot of times it'll mean that
up in PvE this weekend. What else? I was cleaning up.
But a lot of other times it means that you're actually challenged by this 100% of the time, and you have to be right on top of your game. And that also means that the Feds going up against these Klingons that have been PvPing their entire life, you're going to be clocked clean.
Yeah, you got to be. Yeah, yeah, that's true, and it's going to be fair because in Star Trek, I mean, it sounds kind of stupid, but in Star Trek, I always find it ridiculous when the Klingons beam onto a ship, or say they beam onto Deep Space Nine, and the Klingons are getting their butts kicked by humans. I'm just like, these Klingons from the age of since they could stand.
Well, what about
that fighting?
The House of Quark episode where he?
Yes.
Never mind.
Yes.
We won't go there.
But that's a great example. I'm just that it's so imbalanced. I'm like, no, the Klingons they know how to do combat. They've done it forever. It always seems like not that the Federation Starfleet officers don't have training. It's just it's a lifetime of training for the Klingons.
It's their entire way of life.
Yeah. Moving on, just as a point of note, Cryptic is beginning to assemble a Ships of the Line page over at StarTrekOnline.com/
Well, this
ships
is
index. We'll link to that.
You might call this a replacement for their previous Ships of the Line pages.
Yes.
This is actually, it links, it just shows you a basic overview of where
the
each
Federation
class fits.
Of the Federation ships, of the different types, the cruisers, the escorts, and the science. And I love the cruisers.
Science.
I know you like the science because it has the Olympic class.
Right.
And the Olympic class is...
That's the one with the big sphere on the front.
The Olympic class is special. But the cruisers and the escorts are really, for me, where it's
a lot of people have asked me why do I like that class, and I've told other people that all the other Federation ships either look like saucers or elongated saucers.
But you know what are cool?
What?
Saucers.
Huh.
Yeah. No. Since just like science fiction old days, saucers are just awesome, dude. And I'm sorry, I just can't help it. I just think they're awesome. I really do. I wanted to mention this isn't in the show notes. But I want to talk about it in this episode because it's the only show we do that's so Star Trek focused. I got the Star Trek Season 3, the original series Blu-ray box.
Oh, yeah?
It just came out.
Uh-huh.
And it comes with a little Star Trek Online card in there where you can unlock a...
I saw this. It was sitting on your desk.
It's from the Wrath of Khan. It's the Wrath of Khan, red with the white turtleneck uniform. Very cool. Very unique, really, because there's so many different types of uniforms, but there's not anything that looks like that.
Right.
So it came with that. But this Blu-ray set, first of all, it has the original version that's been cleaned up, like remastered in the sense of they've rescanned in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Then they also have the new effects version, so you can watch either one of the episode, which is cool.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
And then they have the last disc has a bunch of special features, including an original pilot that never aired.
Oh,
the episode where No Man Has Gone Before was kind of like just after Captain Pike, after they scrapped the Captain Pike,
right,
and that whole trip to that planet. They scrapped that. They said, "All right, we need to have a new kind of fresh look." So that's when they brought William Shatner in.
They did another pilot at that time.
They did another pilot, and then later on, they took that original pilot and re-chopped it up into another episode where No Man Has Gone Before, where they go outside the galaxy and all this kind of stuff, and the people get two of the characters get powers and stuff like this, and
I like powers.
So there's been two different types of pilots that didn't air. There was the original Captain Pike one that never aired.
The Cage?
That's the Cage. This is not this. This is a totally different Star Trek with a different monologue intro, not Space, the Final Frontier.
Oh, I've heard that intro.
This is totally new intro.
It's like
by
something
William
like
Shatner.
When you're entering into the outer realms of space.
We probe into the
totally
outer
weird.
It's a little bit of a weird. And they take their intro music is actually like the background music they use later on for different episodes. And it's a different intro monologue by William Shatner. And the style is very 60s. There's like these 60s like acts that they do that are hard breaks in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting. It's on the last disc in this Blu-ray set. And it's
Worth
They're
getting.
taking from, I think, maybe Gene Roddenberry's son's home collection that they then digitally mastered and brought it in and scanned the film and then put it on the Blu-ray.
So worth getting for any fan of Star Trek.
It's not that much. I'll link to the Amazon affiliate link from our store where we get a little cut if you do buy it. But it's almost just it comes with the uniform for Star Trek Online. So I'm going to be running around in the Wrath of Khan uniform, which is just awesome.
They've got a little picture of it on the card. It's very awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
And you go to StarTrekOnline.com, and even if you're not playing, but you have an account, like if you signed up, I was able to register it.
Yeah, that's the same thing with Champions Online. I think, a lot of the pre-order bonuses, which,
and I think
do you want to mention some of that too?
We should.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think the uniform unlocks for any character I have.
Right, yeah, I think so as
which
well.
Which is neat. Okay, so let's talk a little bit.
Yeah, that'll take us into, now they, a lot of this information we touched on a little bit in our last episode, just basically with the fact that it was out there.
Yeah.
There is so much information about pre-orders and what's in the collector's editions and everything. Going over it all in this show, it would just be an entire episode of us reading a website.
Anything in particular you want to cover?
Well, I want to mention that the overseas and Canadian pre-orders are now available.
Oh, good.
And all of the information is there on Star Trek Online. But that's a big thing. Earlier on we were telling, when the first GameStop offers started coming out, we were like, well, we need to hear it from Cryptic.
Yeah.
Because until they do, we can't trust anything. Now
these are official on Cryptic's website.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it looks like it's actually better than what some of the retailers were saying.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, the
first one to come out was that original Connie, and there are so many better special offers now.
Yeah. Over at StarTrekOnline.com/retail, they have a list of every retailer, and if it's U.S.
Yeah, with a little flag, shows you where
which country you can buy it from.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you click on the retailer, it takes you to their page where you can buy it. And then we also have a link over on our show notes.
Yeah,
where
it's like
support the show.
One-stop shop for all your Star Trek Online needs.
That's StarTrekOnline.com/retail. So very
But again,
good to see
if you want to go through Amazon, you can support the show by using our store affiliate link. We'll give you the link for that
in the show notes.
Yes.
All right. Good to have that stuff. And I've done 2 pre-orders because I pre-ordered from GameStop. And Amazon.
I've followed other MMOs before they roll out, and I've seen people talking about where they're pre-ordering from or what they're going to do with their pre-order. Yeah. Getting in line the night before.
And there's
outside
even
the
Atari
store.
official, but this one's really, this one was really.
This is the first game that I can recall a large portion of the population out there doing multiple pre-orders. Like, there are some folks in our fleet that have 4 pre-orders set aside, so they're going to own 4 copies of the game.
Wow.
Just for these separate bonuses. That's a little crazy.
That's pretty big. And the fleet, our fleet's our Jupiter Force fleet, which you can find over at JupiterColony.com, is really getting big. It's getting awesome.
I love the conversations that go over there.
There is our STOked forum over at JupiterColony.com is just exploding with awesomeness.
Yeah.
There's literally, I will find information there before I see it anywhere else on the web. The people that are in there are so passionate.
I keep mentioning this over and over, but that's where I learned about the YouTube videos that just came up over this weekend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was the first place I heard from it. I don't even know if, as of this taping, they've been released on the Star Trek Cryptic forums, probably because people don't want to get them pulled.
Well, yeah, they get smashed.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm ready to jump into some of these articles, unless there's anything else you wanted to cover before we move on.
Well, since I mentioned those, just we're going to put the links to those videos in our show notes. But like we said before, they might get pulled before this episode airs, so good luck.
Yeah. Good luck and safe journey. All right. So we have Jack Emmert, who we've been talking to recently to come on our show potentially. Goes over.
He's the COO of Cryptic. I guess he's above Craig Zinkovich, who's the executive producer of Star Trek Online.
Well, and that probably doesn't matter to most people out there. He's just somebody involved at a high level.
No, but it's information. You tell them things.
Hey, Jeremy.
What?
Good job being informational.
Thank you.
You are so informational, Jeremy. All right, so there.
At least I didn't math you again.
He had an interview with MMORPG.com, and he basically talks about a little more in depth with Klingon content. Some of the highlights, some of the stuff we've already talked about, but he says that there will be a full set of skills. They have their own bridge officers, they have their own ships, they have their own territory, and they have their own advancements with their own missions.
Yeah. Now, that last part I actually put in big, bold, pretty letters in our show notes because I think this is important to know that even if it's PvP, you can still have objectives. You can still have your own missions, even if that mission might be like kill 50 Federation players. You can go out there and you can feel like you're actually accomplishing something.
It almost seems like PvE then isn't really a good way to describe what it is.
No, it really isn't.
It's like a PvE hybrid, or it's a PvP PvE hybrid.
I think calling it objection-based PvP is a good way to go about it.
Yeah. I won't object to your objection-based PvP.
Thank you, Chris.
So there is going to be some actual player versus environment content. You know, some of that stuff. It's just not as in depth as the Federation.
Right. So there'll be like random encounters, or you can go to some planets and explore, things like that. But it won't be. The Federation side has these big episodic story arcs where one mission leads into the next and brings you to the next system and the next storyline, but that's just not there on the Klingon side.
This is an interesting one. Craig Zinkovich was over at 13.1, which is an interesting site. Did you notice
kind of a neat layout?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it actually looks like you're looking at a magazine.
It is like it's like an online magazine. It is neat from that perspective. And my wife walked in when I was reading it, and she thought that it was really cool. So it's a unique take on displaying.
So it gets
content.
the Mrs. Fisher seal of approval.
Yes. One of the interesting quotes from Craig Zinkovich in the interview, that a lot of it stuff probably people have already seen, but this one kind of stuck out. You'll experience references to well-known characters, like maybe a ship named after somebody.
Right.
But there is no, at the moment, direct likeness, because the rights through CBS and Paramount are a little sticky and extremely expensive.
Right.
So there's probably not going to be like a Captain Kirk or Spock character, not to mention this takes place in 2409.
Yeah. So
they'd be dead. So
the only one left from the original series that might have still been alive is Spock, and he went back in time.
Picard Riker could still be alive.
But, now what I'm catching from this is not so much
of them,
not just like ships named after him, like the USS Picard and things like that, but you might hear, well, we heard word from the Enterprise out in this quadrant that we need to take care of something,
but it's not going to go. So they're in there, but they're not. You're not going to warp up to the Enterprise and have Captain Picard hail you.
Yeah,
and that's understandable. First of all, could you imagine just to bring Patrick Stewart in and
do you have any idea how much he got paid for doing Oblivion?
No.
That video game where he did like 10 minutes of voiceover work
Crazy?
At the beginning. It was like twice their entire budget for the rest of the game.
Well, if people...
and by the way, Patrick Stewart got knighted this weekend, or is getting knighted sometime. So make it sir.
Yes. Nice, Jeremy. Nice. Very, very good.
I've been waiting to use that pun.
All right. So Zam has a review of what we know so far about Star Trek Online. If you've watched some of our, I think it was episode 14, or no, maybe it was episode 15 where we covered some of the history. A lot of it was already covered. I think maybe Zam watched Stoked and then did an article about it, perhaps.
So this is it's a recap.
Yeah.
If you've watched our show, you've got all this information already. But if you have a friend that's like, oh, Star Trek Online, I've never heard of that. Well, first of all, send them over to Jupiter Broadcasting.
Right.
And have them watch this. But if they're still confused, there's this other article.
Yeah. If they like to read, if they don't like to be productive while they listen or watch, there's a 3-hour tour of the first part of the beta, which I guess would probably be mostly the tutorial section.
Probably.
Maybe not 3 hours of it, but
depends on how much you suck.
Yes. But that's also over at MMORPG.com, and they did a whole write-up about sort of their first 3 hours with the game.
Yeah, kind of a walkthrough of what the storyline's like, what they were impressed with.
Jonesing to know more about it, that's where you'll find that at. So, all right.
Speaking of jonesing, there's actually a couple more articles about character creation, which is something that I was always
Cryptic
really jazzed
is really
up
known
about.
for their character creation.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the kind of jokes for Champions Online, sometimes from the detractors, was, well, the character creator was a lot of fun. The game was okay. And there is some truth to that, because you can spend a lot of time customizing a character, and you make a unique looking character.
You only get like 8 character slots in Champions Online. I've probably made 20 characters by now. Just make them, delete them, which makes the tutorial get a little boring.
Yeah, yeah. But they've really extended a lot of that technology into Star Trek Online.
Yeah,
and they're streamlining a lot of it.
A couple of these articles. Can you scroll up so we can just tell them which site they're on?
Yeah.
They've got great pictures
over at Zam
and good. Was it Zam?
Yeah, Zam has an article.
Yeah, Zam's got one, and I think one more up. Rock paper shotgun is actually a really good article.
It kind of goes into the kind of the almost the engineering science behind the faces. It's
the
really
morphology of changing the shape of your character's face and everything.
Yeah,
really great artitle. If you're interested in character
solid
creation,
pictures. If you want to know what the characters, if you want to know what the characters look like. I'll probably show a few if I remember behind us, but
you don't even have to read the articles really. Just look at the pictures and you get a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And then come listen to us.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk about these videos. Mainly, the one I want to talk about the most. We'll link to a video of kind of behind the scenes of Zachary Quinto's recording for the voices. If you missed that from recently, there's Spock from the new movie and Siler from Heroes.
Right.
Zachary Quinto is doing voiceover in the game.
It's been said that he's playing like the emergency medical hologram, but it sounded like from some of the other behind the scenes stuff, he's probably also doing like just a generic tutorial voiceover.
Yeah.
So he'll be the one telling you how to play.
In the behind the scenes episode, he's like, W makes you go forward or whatever he said. You know.
Yeah.
So that sounds like tutorial to me. Now a video came out, Veil of Space Part 1 Into the Lion's Den. Now this is an interesting video because it's a unique approach to the videos we've seen so far about Star Trek Online. It's almost more episodic. And what's neat about it is all of the shots are in-game shots with the UI turned off, and they just use the camera rotate feature and the zoom in and the zoom out, and they've basically set up a little mystery story, a quick 5-minute, if that, video.
It says it's episode 1, so I'm hoping that we see more of these. It is fun, and for the first time, I think, in any of the videos that they've shown previously, really good voiceover work.
Very, very good voiceover work. And almost like, Jeremy mentioned it, and I thought so too, there's the voice of the captain, and it sounds like an actor that we both should recognize.
It's the type of voice that you feel like, oh, I should know who that is.
Yeah. And he says a word, like he says unsuccessful, like their mission so far has been unsuccessful. And the way he says it almost sounds like the word just tastes bad, and even in his mouth, it was done well.
Like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Then there's this moment in the video where the guys are down on the planet, and there's all these Klingons approaching their ship. Now, funny note, Cryptic has explained over and over again that when you're down on the planet, your ship basically pops away. You're not going to get attacked while you're down on the planet. So it's funny that they did an episode where your ship's getting attacked while you're down on the planet. Maybe they're all approaching a beam down or something. Anyway, so the camera zooms out and zooms out and zooms out, and you see some Klingon ships, and you see a couple
like
Klingon
bird
ships.
of prey.
You're like, oh, there's a couple bird of preys, and then it keeps zooming out.
5 raptors
and then
come in.
5 ships, and you're like, oh boy, that's bad.
Oh, they're
and then it
aft.
zooms out even more, and like the major carrier comes
3 of
in,
them.
and another one comes in, and another one. And you're like, oh boy, and then to be continued. And that's a cool way to do it. I mean, I'm like, I want to see the next part. That was fun. So hats off to Cryptic on that one.
And you know what? No exploding ships.
Not yet. I have a feeling there's gonna be though.
The USS Remembrance will explode.
And I've spent a little time thinking about the ship blowing up, and you know what it is? Is a video that has ships blowing up will probably get twice the amount of views as a video that doesn't.
Maybe we
have
should
ships
put some blowing up ships in ours.
That's what I'm thinking, because people want to see stuff get blown up.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's shift gears from video and move into some of the screenshots that have come out this week. We'll do a heavy focus here on Klingon stuff because that's really what Cryptic focused on.
I think that we kicked off the Klingon blitzkrieg here.
Well, I think so. I mean, after the forum lit up after our thing in there.
And I don't think that Cryptic had any choice but to really respond to that by giving more information. Jack Emmert came down from on high to speak to people about the Klingons and about pre-order bonuses too, which were another hot topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was already brewing under the surface. I don't want to take full credit. I think it was kind of coming, but it definitely seemed to kick off.
I'm going to take credit.
All right. Okay. Fair. All right, so let's look at first pictures were embedded over at trekmovie.com, and
tons of them.
I want to start off with this really great classic-looking Klingon bird of prey.
Yeah,
and this looks like it's right out of the motion picture movie.
It really does. It's got that red torpedo tube right on the nose of it.
Yeah,
and everything.
And it's getting shot at, but it's.
I actually think that might be the Katinga battlecruiser. Actually, I don't think it's a bird of prey.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I need to work better at. I just call it, kind of like the generic term.
This ship's green.
I almost think, well, it's like that. Like I almost think bird of prey is like just a generic Klingon ship. I realize it's not, but in my brain, my brain takes shortcuts. Is essentially what happens, and I apologize. So it's a great looking ship, and
it is.
I
always thought that class of ship always looks like it's wearing a hat, though.
Huh.
Or like a Geordie LaForge visor.
It does look like a visor. I'll give you that. That's I don't know, an awesome visor though. It's wearing an awesome visor, so that's good.
Well, I said Geordie LaForge. That I think awesome goes without saying right there.
All right. So okay.
All
right. So moving on, the next screenshot here is a gorgeous one. This isn't a Klingon one, but we're gonna get back to Klingons here in a second. This next screenshot looks great. It's a very cool space station with a neat mist effect and kind of like a mysterious space background that goes with it. And I
really just love that station, though.
I picked the station because it has a cool glow light effect with the nebula gases or whatever that is that's there. The way it lights up is very neat. And and it just looks like a beautiful piece
It's
of
a good
artwork almost.
wallpaper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a good resolution for that too.
Yeah.
Right now back into the Klingon stuff. Here's a shot of a Klingon bird of prey
blowing up ships,
and he's getting shot at actually.
Yeah.
But it gives you an idea of the scale of ship, and this looks like it's actually a PvP. That's not a Federation ship it's fighting, so at least I don't think it is. So it gives you a good picture.
Yeah, I
of
can't tell from here
what the PvP or kind of scene looks like. And again, these are all without interface, but you know.
Now that's a fun one.
Now this is a fun one. This is 2 Klingons, and they have their batlets out, and they're ready. They're swiping at each other. There's actually little swipe trails through the air.
Yeah. Like an animation effect.
Like you cut through the air, and it gives you a great idea of these 2 guys are going at it batlet to batlet, and it's just an epic battle. And
the environment looks great too, with the banners hanging everywhere and the big Klingon insignia on the wall.
Do the banners I believe this was done on purpose. The banners are very Nazi.
A little bit, but I think we've seen them in previous Star Trek.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm saying that was the purpose that when they did that in Star Trek.
All the propaganda hanging everywhere. You think was a little bit.
So if you follow this through, theoretically the Klingons are actually supposed to be the Soviet Union, and that
right, that was the original intention.
Chernobyl was the
Praxis.
Praxis, the Klingon moon, and that was supposed to be the analogy there.
Yeah.
But to me, there's also some that to me just
they've always struck me as almost more of a samurai culture, especially with their focus on the batlet, the sword, as a.
I think, but that
might just be DS9 talking to me.
Well, that was a little TNG with Worf, and then really, really brought forward in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
I think the original conception is they were the Cold War, they were the Soviets.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the original series episodes that really kind of nail that home. I mean, it's so transparent sometimes.
If you look at the original series, there's not a batlet to be seen. They have guns, and they're much more
human for one thing.
They're much more conniving. They're much more deliberate and planned. In the original series, the Klingons are taking over systems, and they're kind of surrounding the Federation, and they're devaluing the Federation credit, and they're choking off supply lines. Like the whole Tribbles episode was essentially fought over a crucial thing, a crucial station,
a trading station, right,
in a supply route,
right. Grain
for grain,
right,
and then they move on. More Klingons later on. The whole honor system and the Klingons, which I thought enhanced, but the Klingons became much more. Yeah, more samurai maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so our next screenshot here is
another Klingon ship.
A little beauty shot.
I think this one actually is a bird of prey. You can say that this time.
This is a bird of prey, and it's a good-looking bird of prey.
But it's not a typical bird of prey either. That looks like some sort of special skin. I don't recall ever seeing that type of a ship in the shows.
Yeah,
it doesn't look entirely recognizable.
It's really green in the shows.
Yeah, and it's got. Just that nose looks very different, and this might be.
It has a rim around the back of it.
This might be a hint of an original design by Cryptic that is some of the customization.
Or player customization.
Yeah, some of the customization that is available for those ships. Yeah.
Okay, so now this is an interesting shot here. This next shot is a Klingon with his batlet standing there, and he's in a hallway, and it's some of the people online conjecture it's the Klingon. High Command, where they have their ceremony and things like that. I'm spacing out the name.
The High Council?
The High Council, thank you. And these are statues there, maybe statues of KLS or people, of KLS, from
previous
KLS's
chancellors
time.
Or something.
Yeah, yep. And it's just a gorgeous shot and such a stark contrast to the Federation shots.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show this one.
But still, even though it's a stark contrast, the lighting effects are great. The textures look real.
Well, what's cool about it is this shot is, I think normally the camera would be more straight on, but this just shows you that if the player stops for a second, spins the camera on and pans up, there's a lot of detail to be had.
Yeah.
So it's very, very cool. Very textured, a lot going on in these shots.
Yeah.
I'll link to a whole bunch more. We've got a whole bunch.
Probably close to a dozen and a half.
Yeah.
But if you go to that last one, the very last one that's an exterior shot down there, just with the captain
out in the
posing.
Yeah.
There's some guy in the background that's standing on his head. He probably just got a shot in the face or something, and he's falling backwards.
But his feet are up in the air.
His feet are up in the air, like
catch,
straight
dude.
up in the air.
Good. Yeah, he's in the middle of a battle. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a battle going on in the background.
He's probably in the middle of flipping over or something like that. That's
and the
so
captain's
funny.
just in the foreground chilling out. Hey, take my
Chillaxing.
picture.
So he's like, "Hope this is good." You know what that was? Somebody at Cryptic was playing, and they're like, "Oh, this is a good one." Snapshot. And then they posted it or something.
And you know they've been known to do that in the past. They did that video with the whole saucer separation thing in it. They don't always look at the background so closely.
Oh, was that saucer separation not intended, do you think?
Yeah. No, they mentioned that they needed to do a better job of QAing their footage before they put it in the final video.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We talked about that, 3 episodes ago?
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a galaxy. There's a battle going on in the background. There's a saucer section and a galaxy class without its saucer just flying around.
Yeah, like going in 2 different directions.
Cool. This last shot I want to talk about, is we haven't talked about the Borg much recently, is Borg-tastic.
Yeah.
It's Borg-tastic, you guys.
It is.
And the ship,
Cuberific.
The ship that they're featuring is very sleek, very wavy. There's no hard edges to this ship.
We've seen a few ships now that are very sleek like this, very smooth. You know, they actually remind me a little bit of the Naboo ships from Star Wars. Those kind of chrome looking.
To me, these really
Corvettes in
sleek ones
space.
always look like a natural long-term progression of the Prometheus class. That one that do the multi-vector.
Yeah.
They always look like, because that one started to get Voyager even started to get very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
The Prometheus took that further.
And the Galaxy was probably the first one to have those very smooth swooping lines on it and everything.
Yeah. And this is just this, and I love the nacelles on this one.
Mm-hmm.
They're very retro modern.
Yeah.
You know, with the way they're exposed blue on one side, and it's almost like you can see coils. You can see the actual coils in there.
They actually look like they're not just neon lights.
Yeah. Or they almost look like
maybe
they almost
really big neon lights.
Yeah, long neon tubes, but the tubes would be the coils. And
right.
Obviously they're not tubes because they're digitally rendered, you guys. Yeah. So stop thinking they're tubes, everybody. But we'll link. We got so many more screenshots that if you want to go sink your teeth into that, we'll have them in the show notes. I also tend to throw a lot of screenshots at the end during the credits.
Yeah.
So you can always just keep watching the video and catch those.
You can.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear from you, and there's a couple different ways you can do that. First of all, you can join our Facebook fan page over at facebook.com/Jupiter
Broadcasting.
And that's an excellent place to find out when we're doing these shows live, to find out when a new episode is released, to give us some quick feedback, all those kinds of things. But if you really want to jump into the community and jump into the conversation, that's over at jupitercolony.com.
Right, and there's a sub-forum there just for Stoked, and as we've said, there's some great conversation going on there. When the Klingon whining started, a lot of people kind of migrated over to our forums, actually, which
there's a little more rational.
Honored.
There's a little more rational discussion in there, and we're really proud
yeah.
of that. So that was very cool. It was funny in a lot of ways. I hit Jupiter Colony first. I didn't realize how bad the reaction was because it was a lot more of a rational conversation going on there. People were discussing kind of pros and cons.
Right.
You know, somebody make a bullet point and somebody else make a bullet point. Then I went over to the Star Trek Online forums.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just there's because the nature of the forums over at Star Trek Online are so much larger.
Yeah.
That even a vocal
they've
minority.
got probably like 60,000 registered users over there.
So you're going to have a larger population with different varying opinions over there.
Right.
And
some of them aren't so smart.
And we're still
a lot of them are.
For the Jupiter Force members, we're working on having a new site for the Force during to have it ready for the open beta.
Yeah.
So we
and
can
if not
coordinate
before open beta, sometime during. We need it by release, and we know that we need it, so
we'll
be
probably
there.
be beta testing the site during open beta. Hopefully, we're working out a few server things because we want to have plenty of capacity and all that stuff. So we're working all that out. All right, and then of course, if you want to email the show, you can email us tips. Tips.
Right, tips.
We got to get a more official one.
We do,
but right now it's tips
because that was previously where people could send us beta info.
But we realized that there's other people you want to send to their stuff, and you can send it there. But I think we'll come up with something more for the show down the road. But right now it's tips at jupiterbroadcasting.com.
That's it. All
right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching this episode of Stoked. We come out every Tuesday.
We do,
and we'll see you next week.